I hear that excuse of a man called Keir Starmer now complaining about Elon Musk. Elon Musk has done the free world a total service. And I agree with Elon Musk that we need to sort out the wokery, the DEI, and all the other malign sort of philosophies that have been embedded into Britain over the recent past, largely as a result of Tony Blair and his cronies.
Now, the Makerfield by-election on the 18th of June even, is one of the most consequential votes in recent British political history. The by-election was triggered when the sitting Labour MP Josh Simons resigned his seat in the House of Commons, thereby providing a route for Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham to re-enter Parliament. And we know that Andy Burnham has his eyes on being Prime Minister one day. This evening, BBC Question Time have a Makerfield special ahead of that by-election, but without Restore Britain's candidate, Rebecca Shepherd. That is despite, according to a poll last week, Restore polling third in the race. Well, the leader of Restore Britain, Rupert Lowe, joins me now. Rupert, good evening.
Good evening, Kate.
Thanks so much for being with us. Look, I wonder why you think you weren't invited to tonight's episode of Question Time live from Makerfield.
Well, I've no idea. You'd have to ask the BBC that question. I mean, at the end of the day, as you say, the poll you're quoting, I think, is the Times poll of last. It's a very old
the Survation poll, yeah, from last week.
It's a very old poll. We didn't think it was very well structured, but in there we were polling 7%, which I think is more than the Tories, Lib Dems, and the Greens put together. So we've not been invited on. It may or may not have something to do with my views of the BBC, which, as you know, I describe as a malign monopoly. And I posted today to say that when Restore is elected to govern the country, the first thing we will do is responsibly defund the BBC. So that may well be a reason why. I heard them on Radio 4 this evening, basically painting a picture of a two-horse race between basically Reform and Andy Burnham and Labour. Well, I can tell you, if you go up on the ground in Makerfield, we've got a tremendous candidate, arguably a far more suitable candidate than the Reform candidate. I personally think that Andy Burnham is, everyone builds him up as the ghost butter. I tell me what he's ever done. I think he's made a complete mess of the Manchester Metro. He was a rather sort of wishy-washy Labour MP when he was an MP. So I'm not quite sure what all the excitement's about. But
well,
our candidate is actually a sound local businesswoman who is doing a sterling job up there, and she, unlike the Reform candidate, she voted to leave.
Well, yes, there's been lots of interesting posts uncovered, hasn't there, about the Reform candidate. And for Andy Burnham, well, his team will argue that he has incited growth in Manchester. Manchester's growing at a rate beyond what is happening nationally, and businesses are well supported there. So, look, he will cite his successes.
More spin, Kate. More spin, you know.
Well, look, he will cite his successes in Manchester. And many people in Manchester agree with him. I don't think this is a tit-for-tat race between candidates, is it? This is everyone getting a fair chance. And you would argue that your candidate and Restore Britain are not getting a fair chance by having an appearance on Question Time. You've sent...
Well, I think it's more than that, Kate, because the BBC's charter, and the BBC is a monopoly, which is funded by a compulsory licence fee, which, if not paid, is technically can end up with a criminal charge. So, which is the only debt, I think, which you can end up with a criminal record for not paying. So I think its duty is to inform, educate and entertain with complete impartiality. And the key word is impartiality. And as a national monopoly, if your charter says that's what you should do, that's what you should do. And we have written basically to the BBC today. We've posted that on X. And we've written to Ofcom as well. And ultimately, you know, we don't think this is right. It's not the way in which the BBC should behave, and it's a breach of their charter. So, you'll have to ask them why they didn't ask us. I've no doubt they'll come up with some sort of some reason why, but I don't think any reason is justifiable, quite frankly, given what I call the bent survation poll, which is not reflective of what's happening on the ground. Well, I see the canvassing returns each day, and I can tell you, we are in the race. We're in it to win it. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Well, as everyone should be, to be fair. Look, if if it's met on deaf ears, your formal complaint to the broadcaster, your report to them by the watchdog Ofcom, would you consider taking legal action?
Look, I've told people civil action in Britain today. I think our judiciary is corrupt. I think a lot of the surrounding solicitors, the barristers, I think the entire mechanics of our law are no longer what they used to be since Tony Blair's creation of the Supreme Court. So I think Britain is a festering mess of corruption now. So taking anybody to court is a complete lottery, and there's only one certain outcome, and that is you enrich a bunch of overpaid, very questionable legal people who have gradually and very sort of dishonestly captured Britain and are bleeding it dry. So would I recommend anyone to go to court? No, I think it's a thoroughly bad idea.
All right, well, you've answered that one. I wanted to speak to you about Nigel Farage as well. There's been a suggestion in Makerfield, and it's something that we've been strongly looking at here on the show. The interesting split here between right-leaning parties, and that actually the presence of Restore Britain is harming Reform and Nigel Farage. It may in turn offer more of a win to Andy Burnham if that right-leaning vote is split. But I wanted to get your opinion on Nigel Farage and his words and actions over the death of Henry Nowak, that he's stoking division. What do you think of what you've heard from the Reform leader?
No, I haven't really listened to what he has to say. I'm not that interested, frankly. As you know, I was in Reform. They tried to politically assassinate me, send me to prison and destroy my political career, which they failed with. They change their story every 5 minutes as to the reasons why. I gave an interview on Dan Wootton after the Henry Nowak catastrophe, and I said he was, in my view, a victim of conscious bias. And I think conscious bias has been embedded into the police force. I don't like the cut of the jib of the chief constable of the Hampshire Constabulary. I think he's called Alexis Boone. And he's been hiding in his glass tower and not really saying enough. He has embedded this stuff into the training of the police, and it's conscious bias. We're all taught that we should be aware of unconscious bias, which I personally think is a load of palpable rubbish, and it's been proven to be. But it's still something that the public sector seems to embed within all its guidance. I think Henry Nowak was killed by conscious bias within the police force, and now everybody is admitting the fact that probably things have gone too far and they need to be reviewed.
Yeah, and look, it is...
The tragedy, Kate, is that somebody, and then many people have died as a result of this, but this young 18-year-old has had to die before people actually do something about it. Yeah. That is the tragedy.
It is also, according to many, a tragedy that this is being politicised. We know that guidance is being looked at. I did read that you had said of Nigel Farage, you'd accused him of seeking to weaponise tragedy, that you had said that Farage's inflammatory use of Nowak's death was low and vindictively deceitful, saying that a young man's murder should not be manipulated to launch attacks on political opponents. I wonder whether you stand by that, because it seems that, like many, there is a line across which you will not cross. And unlike Nigel Farage, you do not want to politicise. Well, no, I'm just interested.
What you're driving at, Kate?
Yeah,
I'm not
certainly.
sure you're making yourself very clear.
Well, I've asked you what you think of what Nigel Farage has had to say about...
I haven't listened to what Nigel Farage has had to say.
Well, I've got some quotes from you here, so I don't know how they've come about, but just you were basically commenting on how you weren't impressed with Nigel Farage's inflammatory use of Nowak's death, and I wanted to kind of explore that further with you about whether the Reform UK leader is...
I'm aware he gave an address about...
And he said it was pure cold rage.
The term cold rage. Yeah. I'm aware of that, right? But I don't want to talk about Nigel Farage. I'm not interested in Nigel Farage. I don't agree with politicising anybody's death. I haven't done that, and I don't think anybody should do it. And I think I think it was an 8 o'clock national broadcast he decided to do. And, you know, I think I haven't come out and done any broadcast about Henry Nowak. I was asked to appear on Dan Wootton's show, which I did, and I gave my view that it was conscious bias that contributed to his death. That's all I had to say about it. So I don't think there's very much more to say.
Okay.
I thought you were going to talk to me about the BBC, and you mentioned just a moment ago you wanted to ask me something about Elon Musk. Ostensibly, I was on here to talk about Makerfield and the by-election, where we're polling a lot higher than anybody expects us to be polling. But now you've moved the ground to Nigel Farage. And
well, no, we have because look, we have discussed Makerfield and Question Time excluding Restore Britain from its programme, which you believe is wrong, and I'm sure many people will agree with you when they see that you are third place in the polling, that you should have an equal opportunity to put your point across. And we've discussed that, I think.
Quite clearly, yeah.
Can I ask you about Elon Musk, about actually whether Elon Musk's continual tweeting about Henry Nowak and the case there perhaps makes you feel uneasy? We've talked about not politicising this. You've said that actually you don't want to say much about it because you don't want to feed the beast, I assume, which is a decent standpoint.
I didn't say I didn't want to say it. I said I didn't want to talk about Nigel Farage, Kate.
Well,
so can we, if we're going to do an interview, can we please be accurate?
Okay.
With regard to
how do you feel about Elon Musk?
With regard to Elon Musk, I think Elon Musk has done Britain and the world a huge service by turning X into a free speech platform. And I posted about that today because I feel very strongly about that. Prior to Elon Musk buying at huge cost, 44 billion pounds or dollars, whatever it was not a free speech platform. And algorithms suppressed things which the owners of the platform didn't like. Equally, that was the same with Facebook. Elon Musk has effectively bought X and he's created a free speech platform. Now, I happen to be a complete and utter devotee of free speech, as is Elon Musk. And it's embedded in our constitution. And I hear that excuse of a man called Keir Starmer now complaining about Elon Musk. Elon Musk has done the free world a total service. And I agree with Elon Musk that we need to sort out the wokery, the DEI, and all the other malign sort of philosophies that have been embedded into Britain over the recent past, largely as a result of Tony Blair and his cronies. But so I agree with Elon Musk. He's got absolutely every right.
What about him getting involved in UK politics?
As has every decent civilised Englishman, British citizen. They've got the same right to comment on what's gone so badly wrong.
But he
with
also has the right to elevate his opinions because he owns the platform. There was some analysis by the Financial Times, and UK politics accounted for more than a third of Elon Musk's X posts over the last week. And the question really is, yes, free speech is important, but that platform is owned by one man who is using it to promote his own opinions on UK politics. And not all those posts are correct. In fact,
with no disrespect to you, Kate, that is palpable drivel. And he does not use his platform. He uses it in exactly the same way as everyone else.
So he doesn't elevate his own posts?
He does not boost his algorithms. He is a highly principled individual. Ultimately, he doesn't even suppress criticism of himself. So the FT, that socialist rag, as I call it, ultimately is incapable of telling the truth. It never has told the truth.
Well, they've just been counting up his posts.
It's not telling that he can make posts, but that doesn't make his posts any different from anybody else's posts.
Okay, all right. So even if those posts are wrong, even if you misidentify a police officer and they have to go into hiding as a result of you posting on a social media platform, that is still completely fine.
Well, I've no doubt our police force will take that up with him if that's the case. But I don't follow every twist and turn. I've been at the Public Accounts Committee most of today, trying to hold the civil service to account, who waste billions of British taxpayers' money. And today we were on compensation schemes where government makes very bad decisions and it then makes even worse decisions in trying to put right the bad decisions and the effects it's had on its population to correct those bad decisions. And guess who picks up the tab, Kate? The taxpayer. So Look, I mean, I don't sit on social media watching every twist and turn every 5 seconds. And frankly, I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in changing the way in Britain's government, the way in which Britain's government. That's the only thing that motivates me, because we have gone badly wrong. I don't know how old you are. You're younger than me, but I was brought up in the most fantastic country. The country now is a complete and utter shadow of its former self. Every single person in the country can see that, and that's why support for what we're doing and saying is growing,
Rupert,
at a very fast rate. And by the way, we're bringing people back to British politics, people who've been disaffected. That's the difference between
Rupert
us
Lowe
and all the other parties.
Rupert, thank you. We have run out of time, but thank you for speaking to us this evening. I'll be watching closely whether the BBC picks up on your complaint, and also for their response as well, of course. That is the leader of Restore Britain, Rupert Lowe. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
It is Kait Borsay. It's the evening edition on Times Radio. Let's just run you through the Makerfield candidate list in full. Jake Austin for the Liberal Democrats, Count Bimface for the Count Bimface Party, Andy Burnham for Labour, Dan Clark for the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, he's an independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gould, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall for Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd for Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield for the Green Party, Peter Mark Ward for Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley for the Conservative and Unionist Party.